Imagine what you could achieve if the word failure simply vanished from your mind. What mountains could you climb? What dreams would you dare to chase if you acted as though it were impossible to fail? Most people tiptoe through life, hoping to reach death safely. They hold back their ideas, their ambitions, and their finest dreams because they fear one word, failure. Yet, the truth is simple and profoundly: failure is not an end, it is a lesson. And the man who acts as though it were impossible to fail is the man who truly lives. The great minds of history, Edison, Lincoln, Curie, and countless others, were not strangers to failure. They were simply unimpressed by it. They understood that every setback carried within it the seed of advancement. Each disappointment was a direction sign pointing them toward what worked. You see, success is not the absence of failure, it is persistence in its presence. If you act as though it were impossible to fail, you begin to move differently. Your shoulders lift. Your voice steadies. Your imagination opens wide to possibility. You cease to see obstacles as barriers and begin to recognize them as stepping stones. The world, as it always has, arranges itself to accommodate the man or woman who knows where they're going and refuses to stop until they get there. There is a force in faith, not blind belief, but calm assurance that you are capable, worthy, and prepared to take the next step. When you begin to act from this inner certainty, something extraordinary happens. People notice. Opportunities appear. Circumstances begin to conspire in your favor. What once seemed unlikely begins to feel inevitable, for the universe rewards decisive action more generously than hesitant intention. Here's a simple truth: every person listening to this message has within them the power to shape their destiny. Not one of us is a victim of fate, we are architects of it. The same energy that built bridges, launched rockets, and cured diseases resides quietly within your mind, waiting to be directed by faith and action. It is not genius that sets the successful apart, it is the decision to move forward as if success were already certain. Belief is the quiet architect of every great accomplishment the world has ever known. It is unseen, unheard, yet it shapes the destiny of men and nations. Before any invention, discovery, or work of art existed in the world, it existed first in the mind of someone who believed it could be done. Belief is not mere hope, it is conviction. It is the deep, unwavering certainty that something within us is equal to the task before us. It gives direction to thought, power to purpose, and persistence to effort. Without belief, even the most talented individual drifts like a ship without a rudder, pushed about by circumstance and doubt. But with belief, even the smallest idea becomes a seed capable of moving mountains. The remarkable thing about belief is that it transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. The moment a person believes, truly believes, in their vision, the impossible begins to yield. Belief changes how one speaks, walks, and acts. It changes how others perceive them. It is the invisible current that electrifies the human spirit and sends it surging toward achievement. Great leaders, inventors, and creators throughout history were not immune to fear, but they possessed belief strong enough to overcome it. They saw beyond the present moment to what could be. And that vision, held with conviction, became reality through the steady power of belief. Belief directs the mind much like a compass directs a traveler. It gives meaning to action. A man without belief may work hard and achieve little because his energy is scattered, his aim uncertain. But a man with belief focuses his energy like sunlight through a lens. His thoughts align, his actions synchronize, and his results multiply. The mind, when guided by belief, becomes a creative force of immeasurable strength. It magnetizes opportunity, draws like-minded people, and generates circumstances favorable to success. Belief is the foundation upon which all progress is built, for no one strives earnestly toward that which he doubts. And yet, belief cannot be borrowed, it must be built. It grows from understanding, from study, from repetition of thought until the idea becomes part of one's very nature. The man who tells himself daily that he can succeed begins to feel it, then to act upon it, and finally to prove it. The subconscious mind, obedient and powerful, accepts the dominant thought as truth and works tirelessly to make it so. This is the quiet miracle of belief. It turns thought into fact. It is the bridge between imagination and reality, between desire and fulfillment. Every dream realized by humanity began with someone who dared to believe when there was no evidence, when there was no applause, when there was no guarantee. They believed first, and the world followed. Fear is a shadow, and like all shadows, it disappears when we move toward the light. It is not substance but illusion, born in the mind, sustained by hesitation, and magnified by inaction. The man who stands still long enough begins to see fear take shape, to feel its weight pressing upon him, though it was never there to begin with. Yet the moment he takes a single step forward, fear loses its power, retreating as quickly as darkness before dawn. The tragedy is that most people never learn this. They spend their lives waiting for fear to vanish before they act, not realizing it is action itself that dissolves it. Fear thrives in silence and stillness. It feeds upon uncertainty, upon those endless moments of, what if? What if I fail? What if they laugh? What if it doesn't work? Each question strengthens fear's hold until it feels real enough to stop us entirely. But the truth, as simple as it is profound, is that fear has no existence outside of thought. It cannot strike, it cannot wound, it cannot imprison unless we consent to it. The most successful men and women have felt fear as deeply as anyone else, but they understood this law of courage is not the absence of fear, it is the mastery of it. They moved forward not because they were unafraid, but because they knew that standing still was a greater danger than failing. Every time you act in the face of fear, something extraordinary happens within you. Your spirit expands, your confidence grows. You discover that the monster in the dark was only a shadow of your own making. Fear is a liar. It whispers that you are not ready, not capable, not worthy. But life does not reward the timid, it rewards the door, the one who moves despite the tremor in his hands. Each step taken in courage weakens fear's grasp until it disappears altogether. Action is the only antidote and belief is its companion. Together they transform a fearful soul into a fearless one. Think of the great explorers, inventors, and dreamers who shaped civilization. Do you imagine they walked their paths without fear? Hardly. They faced doubt from others, uncertainty in themselves, and risks that could have ruined them. But they did one thing differently. They acted. They stepped into the unknown, and in doing so, turned fear into fuel. Each act of bravery builds upon the last until fear becomes merely a memory of a person you once were. That is the true secret. Motion conquers fear. A mind occupied with purpose has no room for worry. And so each time you feel the shadow approaching, remember that it cannot touch you unless you stop. Keep walking, keep creating, keep believing, for the light of action will always banish the darkness of fear. The mind is the soil in which all things grow, and it becomes what it is most often fed. Whatever we allow to take root there, whether thoughts of greatness or thoughts of defeat, will one day bear fruit in the garden of our life. The truth is astonishingly simple. We are the sum total of our dominant thoughts. The man who constantly contemplates success, health, and abundance will inevitably find himself moving toward them. The man who allows fear, resentment, and doubt to fill his mind will just as surely be drawn toward the very things he dreads. The mind does not question, it obeys. It does not discriminate between positive and negative. It simply creates in the image of its most persistent idea. Every moment of the day, our thoughts are forming invisible blueprints for the world we experience tomorrow. To change your life, you must first change your thinking. To elevate your results, you must elevate your vision. The mind is like a powerful magnet, attracting circumstances that align with its dominant frequency. Hold an image long enough and it begins to shape reality around it. Hold a fear long enough and it becomes the very thing that limits you. The remarkable truth is that we become what we believe ourselves to be, and belief is nothing more than thought repeated until it hardens into conviction. Think of the great thinkers, inventors, and pioneers who advanced civilization. Each one of them lived with an image in mind, something unseen but vividly real to them. They nurtured that image in thought until it became a living force, directing their energy, shaping their choices, and influencing their destiny. The Wright brothers imagined flight before they ever left the ground. Edison saw light before it filled a single room. Every masterpiece, every revolution, every act of genius began with an idea held so clearly and so persistently that it refused to remain a dream. That is the power of the mind. It turns imagination into form through the constant rhythm of thought and action. We must be watchful gardeners of our mental soil. Negative thoughts, left unchecked, spread like weeds. They choke enthusiasm, drain energy, and block vision. But positive thought, constructive, confident, purpose-driven thought, cultivates growth in every direction. To think rightly is to live rightly. It is not enough to wish for better circumstances, one must think in harmony with them. A man cannot entertain thoughts of failure and expect to succeed, any more than a farmer can plant thorns and expect to harvest wheat. Whatever occupies the mind most persistently becomes the silent architect of our fate, so let your mind dwell only on the things you wish to bring forth. Fill it with images of peace, confidence, and abundance until they become your natural state of being. For the mind, constant and faithful, will always return to you the harvest of what you have sown in thought. Success does not begin with a sudden burst of inspiration or the arrival of opportunity. It begins the moment a person decides to move forward with conviction. Decision is the spark that ignites action, and conviction is the steady flame that keeps it burning. When a man makes up his mind truly, completely, to pursue a course of action. The universe itself seems to stand aside and make room for him to pass. There is no magic in this, only the natural law of cause and effect. The man who acts with conviction sets into motion a chain of events that uncertainty can never trigger. He becomes a force of nature, calm, deliberate, unstoppable. Most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they lack decision. They hesitate, waiting for signs, approval, or perfect conditions, never realizing that perfection belongs only to those who begin. The great difference between the successful and the unsuccessful is not talent, not luck, not even intelligence. It is commitment. The successful man moves in the direction of his goal with a clear purpose and an unwavering belief that he will reach it. He does not ask whether he will succeed. He simply decides that he must. That decision alone transforms him from a drifter into a creator. Life responds to firmness the way the sea parts before a ship that dares to sail. Conviction gives power to every word, every step, every plan. A person without it drifts from one idea to another, uncertain and easily swayed by the opinions of others. But when conviction enters the heart, doubt vanishes. The man who moves with certainty may stumble, but he does not stop. His will becomes a compass, guiding him through difficulty, through delay, through the dark nights of struggle when others would turn back. Conviction does not depend on immediate results. It depends on faith. Faith that the path itself leads somewhere worthwhile, and that persistence will uncover the reward. Every act of progress in human history has been born from conviction. The pioneers who crossed oceans, the thinkers who challenged the impossible, the dreamers who built empires of ideas, all of them acted before evidence appeared. They stepped forward not because they were sure of success, but because they refused to stand still. Conviction is courage in motion. It says, I will begin and I will continue, even when the outcome is unseen. And that determination itself becomes a magnet, attracting resources, allies, and circumstances that align with its strength. When you move forward with conviction, life takes notice. You cease to wait for opportunity and begin to create it. Every decision made in faith carries momentum. Every step taken in confidence clears the fog of uncertainty. Success, then, is not a matter of chance. It is the natural consequence of conviction made visible through persistent action. Every great accomplishment the world has ever witnessed was once thought to be impossible. The history of progress is a record of men and women who dared to question that word, who refused to let limitation become their master. Impossible is the refuge of the timid, a word spoken by those who have not yet learned the vastness of human potential. The truth is that nothing is impossible to the mind that believes and perseveres. What one generation calls fantasy, the next calls achievement. The aeroplane, the electric light, the voyage to the moon, each of these lived first in the imagination of someone who would not bow to impossibility. It was belief, not circumstance, that made them real. The difference between the dreamer who succeeds and the one who surrenders lies not in intelligence, nor in resources, but in the ability to keep going when others stop. Every great endeavor begins in a fog of doubt. People will laugh, they will criticize, they will list 1,000 reasons why it cannot be done. Yet the man who listens only to the still voice within, who keeps his eyes fixed on the horizon, will one day see the impossible yield before his persistence. The world makes way for the one who knows where he is going and refuses to turn back. For life, like a loyal servant, obeys the command of a determined mind. When you study those who have shaped civilization, you will find a common thread. They all began where certainty ended. They acted without guarantees, often against reason, often alone. The Wright brothers had no model of flight to copy. Edison had no assurance that his light would burn. They pressed forward, guided by faith, not evidence. And faith, when joined with consistent effort, moves mountains. What once seems impossible begins to bend under the steady pressure of belief and work. This is not miracle, it is law. The mind that refuses to accept limitation gradually reshapes reality to match its conviction. Most people never test the boundaries of their potential. They live within invisible walls built from fear, doubt, and the opinions of others. They wait for permission that never comes. But the rare few who dare to challenge the word impossible discover that the walls were never real. Each step taken beyond the comfort of what is known expands the realm of what can be done. Every effort made in faith adds strength to the will and sharpness to the mind. What was once unreachable slowly becomes routine. The impossible ceases to be a barrier and becomes a benchmark for what is next. The moment you decide that the word impossible no longer applies to you, your world begins to expand. New ideas appear, new opportunities reveal themselves, and unseen forces align to support your aim. The great truth is that the impossible is only the possible waiting for someone bold enough to attempt it. When a person acts with courage, unseen forces seem to rise and walk beside him. It has always been so, and it will always be so. The moment a man commits himself, truly, completely, to a course of action, something remarkable begins to unfold. Circumstances align, opportunities appear, and what once seemed distant begins to move closer. Courage is not merely the absence of fear, it is the deliberate decision to move forward despite it. It is the calm assurance that life rewards boldness, that providence itself responds to those who dare. The timid wait for the path to clear before they walk, while the courageous step forward and find the path forming under their feet. Every person has at one time felt the quiet urging of an idea, a dream that whispers from the corners of the mind, calling to be expressed. Most ignore it, reasoning that it is too risky, too uncertain, too grand. Yet the rare few who act upon that whisper, who take the first step without knowing the entire road, become the ones who change the world. For courage awakens life's hidden allies. The man who moves boldly is met with guidance, coincidence, and opportunity that he could not have planned. It is as though the universe bends slightly in favor of the one who dares to live fully. Courage is not born in comfort, it is forged in decision. Each time you act in the presence of fear, you strengthen your will and weaken the hold of hesitation. It is like building a muscle. Every act of bravery increases your capacity for more. The man who refuses to let fear dictate his choices soon finds that fear has no power left. Courage and action feed each other. Each step forward builds faith, and faith fuels the next step. The result is momentum, and momentum is the silent secret of all achievement. Life itself begins to conspire with the courageous because they have proven themselves willing to participate in its adventure. History honors those who had the courage to begin when success was uncertain. Explorers who sailed beyond known maps, inventors who faced ridicule, dreamers who pursued visions no one else could see. They all acted before the world agreed with them. Their courage became the bridge between the invisible and the tangible, between the dream and its fulfillment. Had they waited for certainty, they would have waited forever. The law is clear: courage must come first, and proof follows after. The person who waits for guarantees will spend his life watching others live the life he desired. When you act with courage, you enter into partnership with life itself. Doors open where there were walls. Ideas emerge when they are needed. The right people appear at the right time. These are not accidents, but the natural consequences of movement born of faith. Life responds to courage the way a seed responds to sunlight. It unfolds, it grows, it flourishes. The act of daring itself summons the power that makes success possible. Doubt is a thief that enters quietly, stealing dreams before they have the chance to live. It disguises itself as reason, caution, even wisdom, whispering that the time is not right, that the risk is too great, that you are not ready. Yet beneath those gentle lies lies the slow poison that weakens ambition and drains courage. More dreams have been lost to doubt than to failure, because failure at least comes after effort, while doubt prevents effort from ever beginning. It is the invisible barrier between what we are and what we could become, built entirely in the mind. Once allowed to grow, it spreads quickly, clouding judgment, shrinking vision, and convincing even the capable that they are helpless. The tragedy of doubt is that it often masquerades as thoughtfulness. People believe they are being careful, when in truth they are being controlled by fear in disguise. Doubt questions every step, magnifies every flaw, and imagines every obstacle larger than it truly is. It creates 1,000 shadows for every small uncertainty and persuades the thinker to mistake them for truth. But when examined closely, doubt always collapses under its own weight, for it has no substance, only suggestion. It feeds upon indecision, and the cure for it is always the same action. A single step forward in faith weakens doubt more than 1,000 hours of worry ever could. The mind cannot serve two masters at once. It cannot harbor belief and doubt in equal measure, for one will eventually destroy the other. The person who nourishes belief, through thought, study, and daily reaffirmation, will find doubt fading like fog before the sun. But the one who entertains doubt, who listens to its quiet counsel and repeats its fearful phrases, will find belief slipping silently away. We move in the direction of our dominant thought, and doubt, once allowed to dominate, turns us backward. It convinces us that success belongs to others, that our dreams are too far, our talents too small, our time too late. Yet history proves the opposite, that every great triumph began in uncertainty and was achieved by those who refused to listen to doubt. Doubt cannot survive in the presence of decisive action. The moment you act, it begins to crumble. The man who steps forward even uncertainly discovers that doubt weakens with motion. Each small victory strengthens faith until confidence becomes habit. This is why the most successful people are not those who never question themselves, but those who do not allow their questions to become chains. They understand that clarity is born through doing, not waiting. Action dissolves doubt the way sunlight dissolves mist. It reveals the path that was hidden all along. To overcome doubt is to reclaim power. It is to silence the inner critic that keeps us confined and to replace it with a calm certainty that growth comes through movement. The man who learns to doubt his doubt and trust his potential awakens a force that no circumstance can contain. The only real failure in life is failing to begin. The world is filled with brilliant ideas that were never acted upon, dreams that never left the mind of the dreamer, and talents that went unused because their owner waited for the perfect moment to start. But the perfect moment never comes. Life rewards movement, not hesitation. The man who begins, even clumsily, is already ahead of the one who waits. Action, not contemplation, is the seed of achievement. It is through beginning that we learn, grow, and ultimately succeed. Every great accomplishment, no matter how grand it appears today, started as one small, uncertain step taken by someone willing to move before they were ready. Procrastination is the silent destroyer of ambition. It tells us that we'll start tomorrow, that conditions will soon be better, that once we know more or have more, we'll be ready. Yet time passes, and tomorrow becomes next week, next month, next year, until the dream fades quietly into regret. The man who refuses to begin because he fears imperfection never realizes that progress itself perfects the imperfect. Nothing great ever started as greatness. It began in confusion, in trial, in error, in learning. The courage to start when the path is unclear separates the doer from the dreamer, the achiever from the excuse-maker. Starting is not a sign of certainty, it is a declaration of faith. Every moment spent waiting strengthens doubt and weakens momentum. The act of beginning, however small, builds power. Once movement begins, life responds. Ideas evolve, opportunities appear, and unseen connections form. There is a mysterious law that aids those who act. It is as though the very energy of motion attracts help, guidance, and direction. But this power remains hidden to those who never take the first step. A ship cannot be steered until it leaves the shore. A plan cannot unfold until it is set in motion. The man who begins discovers that each small effort opens the door to the next, and progress, however modest, becomes inevitable. Those who succeed are rarely those who began perfectly. They are the ones who began persistently. They learn that beginnings need not be grand, they need only be genuine. A single decision acted upon with sincerity can change the entire direction of a life. It can awaken purpose, summon strength, and ignite inspiration that lies dormant within. There is no failure in beginning, only discovery. Each step taken teaches, refines, and brings clarity. The only tragedy lies in standing still, for stagnation is the quiet death of potential. Life cannot reward what never begins, and the universe cannot guide what never moves. So begin. Begin before the fear fades. Begin before the plan feels complete. Begin before others understand. For once the first step is taken, you will find that the road ahead, though uncertain, will always reveal itself to those who dare to walk it. When you act with faith, life has a remarkable way of responding with opportunity. Faith is more than belief. It is the quiet conviction that beneath uncertainty lies order, beneath struggle lies purpose, and beneath every obstacle lies a path waiting to be revealed. It is the inner assurance that the invisible will become visible once we dare to move. The man who acts with faith does not wait for proof before he proceeds. He understands that proof appears only after the act, not before it. Faith is the unseen bridge between the dream and its fulfillment, and only those who step onto it discover its strength. The world belongs to those who trust in their vision when others cannot yet see it. They move forward not because conditions are perfect, but because they know that conditions improve through motion. Faith transforms hesitation into momentum and momentum into results. It converts ordinary people into extraordinary achievers because it frees them from the prison of doubt. The one who acts with faith is no longer trapped by fear of failure. He becomes guided by a deeper intelligence, the quiet voice within that says, "Keep going, something greater is unfolding." This is not superstition, but a principle as certain as gravity. Life expands for those who believe in its possibilities. Every great success story is a testament to faith in action. Edison had faith in light before the filament ever burned. Columbus had faith in new lands before the horizon revealed them. The Wright brothers had faith in flight while the world mocked them. These men acted not on certainty, but on conviction. Each step forward was an act of faith, and life met them halfway. This is how opportunity works. It reveals itself only to those already in motion. Faith acts as the signal to the universe that we are ready, that we trust the process, that we are prepared to meet the challenges ahead. Once that signal is sent, circumstances begin to align, people appear, and doors begin to open that were invisible before. Faith is not blind optimism, it is disciplined vision. It looks at the same world others do, but sees beyond the immediate, beyond the problem, beyond the temporary. The faithful mind understands that setbacks are not signs to stop, but signals to adjust. It knows that effort, guided by conviction, never goes unrewarded. Every difficulty conceals a lesson. Every failure hides a seed of greater success. Faith allows one to endure the darkness because it knows dawn is inevitable. Without it, a man drifts; with it, he directs the wind itself. To act with faith is to enter partnership with life. It is to say, I trust that what I need will appear when I need it. And somehow it does. Not because the world changes, but because our perception sharpens. We begin to notice openings, hear ideas, and meet people that were there all along, waiting for our belief to bring them into focus. Faith, when expressed through action, is the invitation that calls opportunity out of hiding. Those who succeed are not without fear. They simply act in spite of it. Fear is a universal companion. It walks beside every person who dares to grow, who dares to reach, who dares to live beyond the limits of comfort. The difference between the successful and the unsuccessful is not that one feels fear and the other does not, but that one moves forward while the other stands still. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the mastery of it. It is the decision to take one more step even when the heart trembles, to speak when the voice shakes, to persist when the outcome is uncertain. Every act of progress in the world, from the smallest triumph to the greatest discovery, was achieved by someone who felt the same fears you do, but chose not to surrender to them. Fear loses its power when faced. It grows stronger only when we retreat. The mind left unchallenged magnifies danger until it seems unbearable, but the moment we act, the illusion begins to fade. Each step forward is an act of defiance against limitation. It says, I will not let fear dictate the boundaries of my life. Fear cannot survive motion, it depends upon stillness. When we move, we begin to see that most of what we feared was never real. Life has a way of clearing the path for those who refuse to turn back. The man who advances even 1 inch at a time finds that courage expands in proportion to his action. The great irony of fear is that it guards the very treasures we seek. Beyond fear lies freedom, opportunity, and growth. It is the gatekeeper of success, testing each traveler to see how badly he wants what he says he desires. Most turn away at the first sign of discomfort, believing fear to be a warning to stop. But those who persist discover that fear was not a wall at all, but a doorway. Once passed through, it loses all meaning. Fear is nothing more than an invitation to rise to a higher level of understanding, to trust oneself, to prove one's spirit greater than circumstance. The man who meets fear head-on gains mastery over his own mind, and that mastery is the foundation of all achievement. To act in spite of fear is to acknowledge its presence but deny it authority. It is to say, you may walk beside me, but you will not lead me. The mind trained in courage learns that emotion need not dictate behavior. A man can feel uncertainty and still move forward. He can experience doubt and still choose action. The act itself transforms the feeling, replacing anxiety with confidence, hesitation with strength. Those who practice this become unstoppable, not because they no longer fear, but because fear no longer rules them. Each act of bravery, no matter how small, builds a foundation of power, until one day the man who once trembled stands unshakable in the face of any challenge. So begin now, write that plan, make that call. Take that first small step toward your goal. Stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. They never will be. The moment you act, you set forces in motion that will carry you farther than hesitation ever could. Remember this: success favors the man who acts as though it were impossible to fail. Let this be the principle by which you live. Because once you decide that failure has no power over you, your only direction is forward, and your only limit is the one you imagine. So today, as this broadcast fades, let your doubt fade with it. Step boldly into your dream, move with faith, act with confidence, and life will rise to meet you.